I'm Peter Hamilton, and welcome to another documentary business webinar. And this one follows an exciting session at MIPDOC, where PBS Distribution shared with us their strategy and some key issues revolving around the global distribution of documentaries. So I'm going to welcome Joe Barrett and Tracy Beckett, and I'd like you first of all to introduce yourselves and what you do. How about
Tracy,
you?
would you like to go first?
Sure, of course. I always like to go first. My name is Tracy Beckett. I'm commissioning editor for co-productions and acquisitions for PBS Distribution. So, which means that I bring content into our catalog for our sales team to then sell to the international broadcasters.
And you've been there for a long time, Tracy?
I just realized I've been here for 9 years, which I'm shocked.
And before that?
Before that, I was 15 years at National Geographic Channels International as Vice President of Programming.
Right, so you've got real depth of experience. And Joe?
I'm Joe Barrett, and I am Vice President of Global Sales. I do all non-channel sales. And by channels, we mean some of the hosted channels, linear channels that we have hosted on Amazon. I've been with PBS for 8.5 years. I think I joined 6 months or so after Tracy. And prior to that, I spent most of my entertainment career at 20th Century Fox on the studio side, on film and TV, but distributing, primarily in the distribution side.
So Joe, why don't you help us? PBS Distribution, you're an arm of PBS, you distribute only PBS programs. What's your remit?
Yeah, so, and I'll give you a 30-second history. So PBS Distribution is just that. We were formed about 15 years ago, and really the distribution arm is the distributor of all things that are broadcast by PBS, and all of the different entities under the PBS umbrella. Our group gets that content, and we monetize it in a number of different ways across numerous platforms in numerous countries. And all of that money basically goes back to the mission. We are a public broadcaster.
And so if a producer comes to PBS with a co-production, let's say with a European broadcaster, you don't necessarily have the distribution rights. They're limited to PBS productions. Is that the way it works?
Correct. So, and again, it's all about rights. So, because PBS is a U.S. entity, most of the content is from U.S., right? But we do have an international flavor, if you will, and reach. And a lot of the work that Tracy does, and I'll let her jump in. Much of those films that we pick up may or may not end up in PBS, but many of them do in U.S.
Sure. Yeah, and because we work with some of the same producers, we work with Nova and PBS National as well, but we work with some of the same producers, so some producers come to me for distribution and PBS for broadcast sale. So it's a real symbiotic relationship.
So there's a mix, Tracy, of PBS commissions or PBS funded projects that you distribute, plus independently funded projects. So how does that work? How do the independents find you if they're not just directed through the PBS system? How does that work?
Right. So probably about 60% of our content comes from PBS, with things that they've commissioned, things that are co-productions. So I've got to go out and then find that other, 40% of things that Joe's team can distribute and to sell. And so I'm at all the markets. I am pretty much everywhere. So I try to be anyway. So all you need is to send me an email and pitch me your show. I think that I'm out there a lot talking to producers, trying to meet new producers all the time. I'm always trying to find those talented new people that we haven't worked with in the past. So we go out and ask them for ideas, or we'll go RFP. We'll have an idea that we take to a producer and say, hey, can you develop something on, say, witches, or something that is missing from our catalog? And then we'll co-develop it with the producer. or we'll, and we kind of design it to knowing what our clients are looking for. We try to kind of tailor content to those needs in order to make the co-financing somewhat easier.
Tracy, I told a story at MIPTV about how a no from Tracy can still be a very powerful message, because I pitched you our Osprey project in the very early days, and you said it didn't work for us, but you really liked the project. You're a lot like Jacob Steinberg's filmmaking. And so you encouraged me and ended up helping me bring it to PBS, and then it came back to PBS Nature and was finally funded. So
I think you got
you
lots of
play a key
no's.
role in the ecosystem that's beyond saying, yes, here's the money.
Well, especially for projects that I really love and want to just see get made, because I want to watch them. So we'll definitely, happy to help whatever we possibly can. But I think you got a lot of no's before it circled back to yes. I mean, it's just persistence is everything.
Yeah, that's
And it's plugging into a broadcaster's strategic objective, what they're looking for, what's trending, what direction they're going in. Even though, because we love documentaries, we love films, and I've watched a lot of films that Tracy have brought and read treatments. I'm like, this is fantastic, but for whatever reason, it wasn't the right fit at the right time for PBS, right?
Absolutely.
But that's why we have a lot of conversations. We talk to everybody at markets, trying to keep our kind of nose to the ground, and it's part flying at 30,000 feet, but also at 3 feet, and keeping in touch with what's happening, what people, what consumers want, what do they want, what type of content is really trending right now. And the hard part is trying to figure out, well, that's now. What about in 2 years or 3 years, right? Where do we think that's going to go? Because we know sometimes these take that long to get a project off the ground and done.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Joe, because my friend and colleague Steve Harris was a buyer at A&E and History, and he always used to say, when I'm taking a pitch, I'm asking myself, where is the popular culture going to be in relation to this story in 12 to 18 months? It's not about tomorrow. And so I'm really glad that you mentioned that. So Joe, big shifts in the business. It must be really hard right now figuring out where the market is going and who are going to be the buyers given the transition to streaming. Do you regard this as a particularly tough time for distributors?
Yes, I would say for sure it's been difficult. Not only budgets are always an issue, and they vacillate up and down. They open up, they close, and everything in between. I think this year they've been particularly difficult, but in addition, there's so much chaos in the market. We were joking that a lot of times, do you remember the old Harry Potter movie where the staircases keep moving? And that's kind of like the market, where the staircases keep moving, and you're like, well, I was going northwest, I guess I'm going southeast now. And we see a lot of the majors respond with things like bundling, right? Bundling seems to be the new strategy that they're going after to fight off subscription fatigue.
So tell me, what's bundling, Joe?
So bundling is when 2 or 3 providers get together and they bundle their services, so a consumer can actually pay one invoice, one bill, and get the benefit of 3 providers. So you'll get Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, and you fill in maybe whoever it is, you'll fill in the blank. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And everybody is kind of choosing sides, all the majors, and that'll certainly come down. But just interesting to see how that's playing out with the majors.
So it is hard to predict what's going to emerge from all this. So Tracy, what are you looking for in particular in the documentary field? What are the the genres that you anticipate are going to strike a chord with audiences and therefore buyers?
Well, I think because we are a distributor and we have to be everything to everybody, we can't laser focus in on one network. I think that for us, science and history really are the sweet spots, because they are so global and they can service a lot of broadcasters in different ways. So that's worked really well for us. More contemporary history. We did a show that we fully financed. And by fully financing, we didn't pay. We went out and raised the co-funding from other broadcasters internationally and got the production into production. We did one on Chernobyl and we did one on Concord. So that kind of contemporary history worked really well, especially if it's anniversary based. That gives us a reason to pitch it. It also gives the network an urgency to buy it, which is always helpful in this climate. So that it doesn't have to be anniversary focused, but it's definitely helpful. Or anything that's like a new discovery or newly declassified documents or anything with that hook, that angle, the sales team can really talk up and really give an urgency for the broadcaster to come on board.
You didn't mention natural history, and I've heard that natural history is really still, pretty hot, or at least stable, because it doesn't age as much as a presenter-led program. Is that still a big part of your catalog, or important part?
No, it actually unfortunately isn't. It's a good part of our catalog, definitely. And as an acquisition, I'm finding that it's really hard to get broadcasters to co-produce natural history. And you've got Nat Geo Wild and Blue Ant and Love Nature and all those people doing it really well and bigger and paying for the budgets, commissioning them outright. So, and then they're off in the market selling them as acquisitions. So most buyers can pick up natural history at an acquisition base, and that's what we do. We have a good natural history catalog for that, but not for co-financing. I try to stay away from it.
That's really interesting. It's been my experience when I dipped my toes into executive producing, that the public broadcasting system in Europe is at least more stable, or it's going through a slower decline than, say, the cable and satellite channel ecosystem in the States. And therefore, European public broadcasters and their various arms are important potential partners for quality programming, particularly in the documentary space. Would you agree with that, Joe and Tracy?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for us, that's really our core clients, our public broadcasters, just because they align with PBS so well. And it's the same quality. They need the same quality, the same storytelling as PBS. So I think that's really our core clients, and always
the same audience, very, very similar demographics, with some differences, but and again, we try internationally. And by the way, we don't have international rights to our drama category. So PBS Distribution works in 3 basic categories: drama, factual, which is many subsets under the factual, documentaries, nature, science, history, current affairs, and then kids. Kind of our, one of our value propositions is the educational value of kids, our kids content. We do have kids content that we distribute internationally. Probably about 60% of our catalog we have the international rights to. A lot of producers keep those, but factual, it's virtually all of it. So we kind of focus on that, and I wish we had rights to our drama. That would open up a whole new portfolio of licensed revenue. Yeah.
Well, we could go deep into that, but it's not a focus on documentary business. It's for another time. I'm going to move on to a generic kind of question here for my audience, and that is, I think we discussed this, got in a great discussion at MIPDOC in your presentation. How do producers choose and then evaluate their relationship with a distributor?
Yeah, I can start, and Tracy, you can jump in. So we talked about, out of all of the things that you should look for, the number one in the vein of matchmaking is alignment. Make sure your distributor that you're looking at to distribute your content is aligned with your goals, your audience, their methodologies, their pitches, the markets they go to. Just that there's an alignment and an agreement in thinking, right? Particularly with audience. And I use the example at the session that if a distributor specializes in kids, I don't think science documentaries would be their wheelhouse. However, they're dealing with the same broadcasters. They may make a pitch, but you really don't be afraid to ask questions and find out what is your wheelhouse? What is this distributor's wheelhouse? In our case, it's documentaries, right? And ask questions. I'd ask questions like, what's your windowing strategy? You really need to be careful now with all of the formats and platforms, how to successfully market your content in the right way that'll maximize both revenue and eyeballs and exposure, right? You don't want to give away your new content to AVOD and FAST. That would be windowed further down the sales cycle, right? So windowing strategy would be a really big question. And also, how do they treat catalog? How do they you don't want a distributor that just focuses on new releases. We spend a lot of time attaching to just events in whether it's anniversaries or current events, something that's relevant, that makes that content new again for an audience, right? So that would be another question: is how do you treat catalog? How do you do you just do the new release and then it sits? And lastly, I would say ask yourself, what is your level of involvement? Do you want to be an involved producer in helping market this? Are there any aspects of distribution that you want to hold back versus letting that the distributor handle the entire gamut from A to Z? And a lot of that depends on your experience and contacts in the industry, your territory contacts, things like that. But that would also be some questions I ask myself. All right, what's my strategy? Is there anything that I want to hold back or just let them do soup to nuts? And again, full service. My last thing would be make sure they're full service, and that's my segue over to Tracy. Is that we have a pretty robust co-production financing unit that goes out and can help raise funds, and also transfer that over to the acquisition side after that's done, right?
Yeah, and we see it as a true partnership. So especially on the co-financing side, if the producer is better at getting a deal in, say, the UK than we would be, then we would work with them to make sure that can happen. And then also too, if we love to hear from the producers when they pitch things directly to a broadcaster. I mean, our sales team is fantastic and can do a fantastic pitch job, but there's nothing that takes the place of that producer passion and the depth of knowledge. So, yeah.
So you like producers, if you like producers to come to the market and be involved in the sales process, or do you sign the deal and let us handle the whole box and dice? Where are you on that spectrum?
We kind of see what are our strengths, and weaknesses, and versus theirs, and let's put together a strategy and a plan of how we are going to do this. So yeah, a lot of times we do like to have the producers there at the markets if possible, and we know that can be cost prohibitive, but there's ways that we can work it if we think that that's going to be the best way to get that financing closed. That's very
right. Virtually, we do a virtual showcase,
all the time,
which is convenient for everybody. But what we end up doing is having a producer showcase that piece to a captive audience, and we do it twice a year, and we'll pick 6 or 7 films to really highlight and showcase.
And so you have it's a private PBS distribution loop.
Yes. And we'll have I think we had 115 RSVPs on this past spring showcase that we did.
Wow.
And we try and really respect our buyers' time. We know that they're inundated with films, and we don't want to make this a 3-hour session. It's an hour, hour and a half, where we highlight 2 of the films with a producer. And as Tracy said, nobody knows their film better than the producer, and they can really transfer that sense of passion and excitement about the film that we can't. So we do a hybrid model. We work with the producer when it really behooves us and makes sense to. And sometimes, yeah, no, we'll take it. We got it. But it depends on the project, really.
That's really great. I never heard of PBS Distribution virtual screenings, because
Well, you're going to be on the invite list next time, Peter.
Go check it out.
I tell you that, and you can feel this, the screenings, the intimacy of the screenings model starting to affect the global convention and festival and market ecosystem, right? There's
Yes.
smaller and closer is better. And anyway, why don't we look, this is a really great introduction to PBS distribution. We'll put links on our documentary business website so that you can both be tracked down, and also links to the catalog. And you've been great friends to documentary business over the decades, so I'm really grateful for that. And why don't we end our podcast, our webinar now, and look forward to distributing this to all our eager viewers and readers.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet with a lot of the folks at MIP. We thought that was really well attended, great questions. And I think we spent another 30 minutes after the session just meeting with folks and talking through some things. So that was fantastic. Thank you for giving us that opportunity.
Well, you can't beat going to a market and the relationships that establish.
Yep.
That's why we're here today, right? So
Very true.
Agreed.
okay, thanks a lot, Tracy, and thank you, Joe, and thank you, PBS Distribution.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Peter.